We're very proud of the milk that we produce on this farm. It's very high in nutrition, and it can only come from cows that are well-fed and healthy.
Here on this fifth-generation dairy farm in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales, there's no shortage of feed. And apart from being relatively lucky with rain, Edgar Downs has no doubt about why.
Here's the product here that we're putting on the paddock. It's super phosphate. The phosphate in it is actually only a small part of it, only needs probably a couple of double handfuls on the area the size of a football field to do the job.
Phosphate is a rich source of phosphorus, one of the key nutrients vital to plant growth. When the phosphate rock is chemically treated, it makes the rich superphosphate fertiliser that's seen these pastures grow thicker and faster than ever before.
If we don't do it, then half of our production is gone.
But while the superphosphate used here and across the country helps achieve great things on Australian farms, it comes at a terrible price, paid on the other side of the world.
Please look for alternatives. Please, there are other countries in the world that has got phosphate. Why don't you try to find alternatives and, find other sources? And please understand that your activity in the territory is harmful to our people too.
There are no green pastures where Melaine Lacal lives. In 1975, Western Sahara on Africa's western coast was occupied by neighbouring Morocco. 33 years later, 100,000 people remain displaced, the site of fertile ground a distant memory.
The invasion was a military invasion. It was a very bloody invasion, especially from the north, from the Moroccan borders with the Western Sahara. I was arrested many times, tortured, and was disappeared for months during this period.
Now, with help from a small but dedicated Australian support group, he's travelled here to tell his own story.
Well, how does this compare with the beaches in Western Sahara?
Well, it's very similar. It's beautiful. Yeah. I'm here to raise awareness of the Australians about the plight of my people, about the struggle for freedom, but also to raise their awareness about the fact that they are receiving, without knowing it, stolen goods from Western Sahara.
Melaine Lacal says when Morocco invaded, it didn't just take his people's land, but ownership of the country's natural resources as well.
In Morocco, plans are going ahead for the big march into the Spanish Sahara, the idea being for Morocco to get control of the area's phosphate deposits before somebody else does. The United Nations has asked all parties to show restraint, but it sounds as though the big land rush is on anyway.
The Sahrawis are...
It's this message Melaine Lacal is trying to send as widely as possible to government officials, farmers, trade unions, even school students.
Melaine, welcome to Melbourne.
And it's a challenge, given that, unlike others in Africa, his is a conflict most people have never heard of.
You have Western Sahara, part of Western Sahara, on your table every day because this superphosphate is used in farming.
And it's been that way for more than 20 years. 3 Australian companies, Incitec Pivot, Impact and Wesfarmers, buy the phosphate from Morocco and turn it into fertiliser for use on Australian farms.
The income of this exploitation of my country's natural resources are going to the occupying force. It is used against me and against the Sahrawi people. It is used to maintain a military occupation.
All 3 fertiliser companies declined to be interviewed by the 7:30 report, but one agreed to meet Melaine Lacal.
Well, I'm here to meet with Westfarmer to clearly say to them that we oppose the exploitation of the natural resources in Western Sahara.
But that meeting is unlikely to change the status quo, because even though phosphate rock is available from other parts of the world, including here in Australia, it doesn't come close to the quality or quantity found in Western Sahara. Australia's fertiliser companies say it's a problem the international community has to solve. They say there's very little they can do. And that leaves farmers here with little choice but to use a product that generates such strong returns.
My first responsibility is to the immediate environment of this farm and its viability, and phosphate is an essential part of keeping this farm both environmentally and financially sustainable. And I don't think there's a lot I can do as a farmer in Australia about the political situation in the Western Sahara.
But the United Nations says there is something Morocco can do, and that's to finally deliver on its 16-year-old promise to hold a referendum on self-determination. So far, the UN-brokered negotiations on this issue have continued to stall. And Stephen Zunez, who's written a book on the subject, says that's unlikely to change, despite no one in the international community recognising Moroccan's sovereignty over Western Sahara.
The primary problem is that Morocco, which is the occupying power of Western Sahara, has close friends on the United Nations Security Council, specifically France, the United States, which have used the threat of a veto power to prevent the UN from enforcing resolutions calling for Morocco's withdrawal, or at least to have a free and fair referendum.
For its part, the Australian government says it supports a referendum, but in the absence of formal UN sanctions, it will continue to trade in the Saharan phosphate, a stance that offers little comfort to the people of Western Sahara.
As long as Australia is willing to continue buying phosphates and in other ways supporting the occupation economically, the words really won't go very far.
Malainen Lakal says he wants the trade to continue, but with self-determination resolved. He returns to the camps with a growing number of Australians now aware of his country's struggle for independence and the hope that it won't be ignored for much longer.